Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Bow and Arrow Tarot. We're going to get right into the 2020 Tarot Outlook for the sign of Virgo. Alright Virgos, let's get right into it. Alright, and yes, definitely don't forget to check the placement of your other signs. So your Ascendant or your Venus placement, your Mars placement, because you can also, or your Moon, right? You can also check out the videos for those placements. So if you have a Sun in Virgo, that's fine. Watch this video, but if your Venus is in Capricorn, you might want to check out the Capricorn video, and that may resonate with you more or resonate with you in a particular different area of your life. Okay, guys? So let's get right into it. We're going to pull out your spread for 2020 Virgo. I've already been shuffling and meditating on your energy for quite some time. Let me give it one more shuffle. And 2020 definitely promises to be a year of blessings in a lot of ways. Everybody seems to have financial abundance coming in addition to whatever other blessings are coming in, right? So let's just see for you, my lovely, lovely Virgo. What is 2020 going to be like for you? And here we are. Straight out we have 10 of Wands and the Page of Swords. You are covered by Magician energy. Nice. And an 8 of Pentacles. 3 of Wands. And the 9 of Swords. All right. So this is good. This is good. Very, very favorable aspect. At the bottom, we have a 2 of Swords. So land of indecision. Unsure about how to move forward in a particular area. All right, Virgo. But I'm going to say for some of you, this is going to be a very, very nice year for you finally being able to do what you choose to do with your life. 10 of Wands talks about, I'm going to get back to 2 of Swords. 10 of Wands talks about being able to lay down a burden. So some of you, I think that up until 2020, you may have had a particular burden or responsibility that you've been shouldering for quite some time. It could be that you were taking care of a lot of young children, or you were taking care of a relative, or you had a certain responsibility that was a burden to bear, but that was something, of course, you did out of love, right? But now you're coming to the end of it. Right? You're absolutely coming to the end of it. And I don't want to, a lot of times 10 of Wands can also talk about healing, right? Healing from a traumatic situation and healing, letting go of baggage, and low self-esteem. But I don't feel that this is the case here with you, Virgo. This is very much a laying down of a burden or a responsibility that was something that was really real, that was put on you, I believe. And this year, it's the end of it. Right? So you no longer have that responsibility, and you come into the year with a Page of Swords. You are able to finally set out a plan for yourself and your life this year. It's like, wow, I'm free. Right? Some of you may have been graduating school, and you've been working through school and the burden of school and, all of that. But now, finally, it's over. You may have gotten your degree or gotten your doctorate or what have you, right? Got your certificate or whatever. But in any case, being covered with this beautiful sort of fresh ideas and Page of Swords just lets me know that you're starting this year off with a sense of starting a new adventure in a lot of ways, but starting a new idea for your life. You're very clear about what you want to do. And so it's for this reason that I feel like this burden as well, it was something that was kind of, you just had to deal with, right? Even if you were a young person, for instance, it may be that you had to deal with a sick relative, or you were taking care of your mother or your father and they were a little bit elderly, right? And you weren't able to sort of follow your life's ambition. But of course, you took the burden on because it was a burden of love and duty, right? You felt like you needed to do it. So it's that type of feeling I have for you, Virgo, very much so. And then this freedom of coming out of it with this Page of Swords, this real idea, this feeling that you haven't had a chance before to really think about your life. You see what I'm saying? In this way, this burden was something that really didn't allow you to really make any future plans for yourself, but you come out of the gate with this, in this year with 2020, beginning to think about your future, beginning to formalize it and think about what the next step is for you, what new path you'd like to take. You come into the year with Magician energy. And that's in your focus, in your conscious and unconscious. You have Eight of Pentacles. So with the Magician, it's quite interesting. You really come into your own. For some of you, you really find right away what it is you wish you want to do with your life, right? You right away realize what skill or what talent it is you have. The Magician talks about having abilities that really make you look like you're a magician to the rest of the world. There's some area in your life that you're so good at and you're so adept at it that, you know, nobody else has that skill like you do. And it comes easily to you, right? And it's something that you enjoy doing, right? And so you're resonating with your true talent. When we talk about being a magician, you're resonating with your true talent, your true given abilities, and you're aware of it and you're not squandering them. You're very intentional. In the back of your head, you have an Eight of Pentacles. So some of you are indeed realizing it's going to take a lot of work to perfect this area of your life, but you're ready to do it. Because I think the burden that you've, like I said, this burden that you were carrying was something outside of you and your life in a way. It was apart from you or anything to do with really who you are and what you want with your life. And now you are, of course, ready to put the work in, because this is the work, this is the love of labor when you're doing something that's close to your heart. That has something to do with your path, your career, right? Your skill. Eight of Pentacles talks about being very strict with yourself and disciplined with yourself, avoiding any extreme behaviors, putting boundaries and restrictions on yourself in a sense that, you know, you're not going to allow yourself to be caught up in something else when you know you need to go to work or you know you need to study this thing to get better at what you want to do. So for some of you, this year is a real case of you finding your calling. Right? You find your calling, but you find your calling because you finally have the space to find it, because you no longer are dealing with this sort of burden that you've been carrying. You come into the year with a Three of Wands and you round out with Nine of Swords. Now, Three of Wands talks about patience, right? Life is going to kind of put the brakes on a little bit towards the beginning of the year, because a lot of things this year need to really unfold naturally for you. Yes, you have found your calling. You're beginning to formalize a plan. But a lot of this year is going to require you to just begin working on that plan. Because, of course, up until now, you haven't been doing that. You've been working in another area of your life that has really been consuming a lot of your time. But also right now, although you're ready to really go for it, which would be Two of Wands, Mars and Aries energy, here you have Three of Wands. And life is really sort of making you stop and take a look at the lay of the land before you sort of dive headlong, right? Something else needs to come in this year. Some understanding, a lesson, maybe perhaps an individual who can help you on this path, or some sort of event that you need to go through to understand something. But Three of Wands talks about patience and virtue. Three is the number for bonding and loyalty. In this way, also, it talks about really sort of in order to remain true to your real path in life, right? Adhering to your real path, sometimes we have to stop moving to allow something else to come in. If we keep moving at the rate we're moving, sometimes we miss certain things that are necessary for our future. And so this is what happens. The end of the year, you round off with a Nine of Swords, which is a real sense of anxiety. You have a lot of anxiety later on this year. It could very well be that you come back to whatever this burden was, you begin to worry about it. It could be for some of you that you just feel a little bit like, did I leave, or did I lay that burden down too soon? Nine of Swords is definitely a misery that we put on ourselves when we're feeling a little bit of guilt about something. And it doesn't necessarily have any bearing on the truth or the reality of our lives, right? Now, this Two of Swords is interesting because Two of Swords talks about trying to find the need to find balance when you can't decide between one choice or the other. Here we have a person who really is in the land of indecision. She is being given an impossible choice, you know, having to choose, like an example, choosing between family and career, you know, or between two families. You know, sometimes there's people or society or events, environments put pressures on us that make us feel as though we have to make a decision in an area in our lives where we just can't make a decision, and we feel that really what we need is a balance of everything for us to be whole. And that's the essence of Two of Swords. And it could very well be that for some of you, This burden could be that you may have, a burden could just be your responsibility maybe to family, right? It could very well be that, you know, you left the family to go follow your own path this year. Maybe later on this year, you're kind of like, man, why did I do that? You know, because here with the Two of Swords, we're talking about finding balance. It could be that you regret, you know, right away leaving or right away laying down this sort of Ten of Wands. If it's not necessarily a burden of responsibility, but just a burden of guilt, right? This feeling that you have to like do what your family does or your society, your culture or whatever. And so you lay that down and run away from it, but yet you're forced to come and face it. In any case, something in your life is forcing you towards the end of the year to really sort of pay attention, right, to what has been going on. And if it's misplaced guilt, let it go, right? Sometimes, like I say, Nine of Swords doesn't necessarily mean that you have something to feel guilty for. It is oftentimes having sleepless nights and anxiety over things that we believe we should feel guilty over, or regrets that we feel that we should have. But it's really like, you know, sometimes it's just a case of facing up and saying, look, there was nothing I could do and I need to stop worrying about it. It's anxiety, right? And anxiety is not necessarily rational, is my point, right? This could be just an irrational fear of change or of things happening. But whatever the case may be, towards the end of the year, Virgo, some of you may be dealing with some anxiety. And we're going to pull some clarifiers now to see if we can go a little bit deeper, so we can see the nature of that. Show me what's going on for my lovely Virgo 2020. Show me. All right, Virgo, we have Magician on Magician, out of control, though. Yes, Knight of Swords. And here we have Temperance energy or Sagittarius and Two of Cups. Okay. So at the bottom of the deck, we have Seven of Swords. Another Swords card. Some of you Virgos. Some of you, this energy, let's get right into your clarifiers. This is something interesting. So you have Magician energy coming out, but you're covered with Magician out of control. This is the Magician in the Thoth deck. The Thoth deck has 3 magicians, and this is the Magician who's absolutely out of control. He is being controlled by a monkey on his back, which is turned into a gorilla, basically, right? He's being controlled by the pressures of life or the pressures of society, right? And again, I think for some of you, this is a constant battle, and this is why the burden has become too much and you're laying it down. Some of you may indeed be dealing with, you may be having a particular skill at something, and for instance, you are being pressured to use your skill in a way that you don't want. Let me be clear. An example would be, now this may be a very far-fetched example, but it is an example nonetheless. Say, for instance, you are a really, really good electrician, right? You're very good with electrics and components and building little gadgets, right? But you come from a family of criminals, right? Like I said, this is a far-fetched example, but it's an example. But you come from a family of criminals, right? And they force you to use your skill to make shit for them that they're going to use in their criminal activity, right? This is an example of what I'm talking about, right? And I'm saying this, of course, is far-fetched. It sounds like something out of, DC Comics or something. But this is what I'm talking about. There is something in your life, I believe, that is sort of compelling you or pressuring you to use your talents, your God-given gifts in a way that is not what you agree with, or in a way where you feel like you are being manipulated or you are being exploited. And this is one of the reasons why you have laid down this Ten of Wands. Some of you may indeed have some kind of family or cultural or background connection that is making you feel this way, and you can't deal with it anymore, and you leave, right, and want to find your own path. Some of you indeed could just be simply in some kind of connection or situation with someone that is where you feel constantly like they're manipulating you, constantly sort of using you in such a way that you end up feeling bad for what you've done. very strong, very intense energy. I haven't ever had this Magus come out over Magus, and this is exactly what that would, what that would indicate. And so in the back of your mind, you have Knight of Swords, and so you're coming up again. You have a lot of swords energy this beginning of the month, Virgo, and I think for a lot of you, now this goes back to my original example, right? Say, okay, you're in a criminal background, your family, they're making you do, make these gadgets for them. But in the meantime, in the back of your head, you have a Knight of Swords in the sense that you are probably secretly coming up with a plan, or you may be keeping it to yourself, but you're definitely thinking, you're being very clear and logical. And while you're tinkering away and working and preparing your craft and getting better at your craft, you're also coming up with the perfect idea for how you're going to get away from this burden, or how you will get out from underneath this burden. Right? And so this year you're being extremely logical and inventive, and all of this is towards your ultimate good, to get away from any, to clear the obstacles in your way to having a full life. And again, that was a kind of, it was a crazy extreme example, but it can also be things like, just feeling like generally being manipulated and forced to live a life that you don't want to live, and knowing that you're meant for something else, knowing that you're meant for something so much more, It could be the burden of a family who forces you to work in business when you want to be an artist, or a family who forces you to be in art if you really have a good mind for business. Whatever the case may be, it is a burden and it is a pressure, because Ten of Wands also talks about a real oppressive feeling of being oppressed. And oftentimes, Ten of Wands, we talk about laying it down because the oppression has gotten so strong. So we talk about letting go, but also the flip side to this card is also that there is something in your life that is really sort of oppressive for you, and you just can't live with it anymore. And so a lot of this year is going to be you figuring out how to get out from underneath this yoke or underneath this pressure. Temperance is coming in over that Three of Wands, which is perfect, because while you're being forced to wait, you're really sort of conducting yourself in a very sort of methodical way. You're not allowing anybody. You've learned, as you come into this year, you're learning best you can to be in complete control of yourself. And part of it is slowing down and maybe taking a moment to think about the way you're doing things. And this is going to be combative for this energy here. This is going to be absolutely necessary to help you get out from underneath of this. This could very well be a toxic energy or family energy. This could be a weird family dysfunction energy where you're dealing with somebody in your family who is like keeping you from your happiness because they have like a weird sense of possessiveness over you, right? This could be someone like, I feel also somewhere out there's some Virgo has a really strange connection with somebody in their family who is so possessive over them that you almost have to sort of like adjust all your behavior. You're having to really sneak around them to get away from them and come up with this plan so you can get away from this oppressive sort of feeling. This is somebody who's maybe, almost stalkerish or possessive or just really having you under your thumb, right? But this year you come out of it, and this balance you find, this Two of Swords, is really like, I think this is, again, a pressure that this person or this area of your life is putting on you. It's like them or us. It's them or us. You can't have your life and have us. You can't be with us. We're your family. That would be another example of like this pressure and oppression from perhaps a very dysfunctional family or family member who's constantly telling you that, either you stay with the family, right, and you're miserable and toxic and crazy, or you leave the family and then you can have your own life, but you can't have both. I think very much this Two of Swords is a pressure to make a decision that's an impossible decision to make, and is a form of some of the manipulation that somebody is trying to hold over you. Towards the end of the year, though, you have a Nine of Swords with this Two of Cups, and I think this is the source of your anxiety, because some of you have a love connection, and I think you worry, oh shit, I finally found somebody I love. You come out of this, definitely. You work to come out of this, because not only is Ten of Swords oppression, but it is also laying down. You're ready to lay down, and with this Page of Swords and this fresh idea and working, you definitely come out of this, but it isn't like you're completely tied. You haven't completely severed ties. Towards the end of the year, some of you are going to have a love connection. You're going to be really, really anxious about this love connection because you don't want this part of your life ruining it. And I think I was wondering where the source of this anxiety was from, because it seemed to be from nowhere since you're leaving everything behind. But of course, it makes perfect sense if some of you have a new love connection and you're very, very anxious that the toxic family members in your life or the toxic past that you had, which you are still somehow connected to, is going to impact this love connection and destroy it, right? So you're worried about that. But again, this is just anxiety, and this is a true love connection with equal love and understanding. So whoever you meet, they may indeed very much understand you and where you're coming from, but nevertheless, you will have a lot of anxiety with that. Let me pull out your animal spirit card. This is quite an interesting reading, Virgo. Very specific. May only resonate with one or two of you out there. We're going to pull out your animal spirit and see what kind of energy is available to you this year to cope with this. Deal with this energy. I see you coming out of it. I definitely do, but it's going to take a lot of energy, a lot of quick thinking. Again, you're being patient and really biding your time and being temperate so that, you know, this kind of toxic energy here that you may be dealing with, that's the source of this oppression, doesn't get volatile or doesn't get out of control. You know, you're biding your time. You're very much biding your time. This is interesting because I did a reading earlier for you, Virgo, that was very much the same as this, that talked about I lost that video. For some reason it disappeared, but it was very much this situation. And that reading was about a Virgo who meets a new lover, and it's like your families really don't accept who you are, and you guys are having to really sort of strategize throughout the year on how to be together because your families don't accept your union. And this is kind of almost interesting that this is the same kind of thing. Here, Virgo, we have you also sort of like trying to get away from some kind of pressure, whether it's a family pressure or cultural pressure that's kind of taking you down a road that is not who you are. And also later on this year that is going to be impacting a love connection in some way. You know, it's like it may be that not only are the family members toxic, but every time you bring somebody home, they ruin it. You know what I mean? It's like one of those comedy sketches. Every time you bring home a boyfriend or a girlfriend, they just destroy it because they're so weird and the person ends up leaving, you know, or something like that. You have the Hawk. Nice. So the Hawk talks about the big picture. It's more air energy. So you see the big picture and you see the little picture. This is also messages of the divine coming in. The Hawk is ever watchful. And in this way, fate has its eyes on you too. And a lot is going to be happening this year that is going to be helping you get out of this very sort of weird situation, this oppressive connection with someone or some part of your life, your family, your culture. And the Hawk really is perfect energy to come in here because, you know, all of the messages that you need and all of the lessons and solutions you need are absolutely going to come in, and they're going to be like inspirational to you, right? And they're really going to help you come out of this, right? Some of you may be manipulated by a family member who has a lot of money. And so part of your strategy this year is going to be working harder to increase your finances so that you are not sort of held by their sort of financial, you know, purse strings or what have you. Bottom of the deck, we do have and there's your wealth coming in. So you're going to get your wealth. 7 of Swords is futility and haste. So be careful of that. Remember, 3 of Wands tells you to wait a second and hold back. There's going to be something coming into your life that's going to help you. And 7 of Swords talks about also not being too hasty for fear of, you know, futility. Haste makes waste. You know, when you're rushing and you're trying to cut corners, every effort you make is going to be very futile. So take really good care of that energy. You know, that you are, you know, that you're not rushing things out of a panic, you know, because again, Temperance and 3 of Wands is telling you that in the beginning of the year, you are going to have to be very, very patient about how you go about being able to lay down these wands. Let's get your, Sacred Rebel Oracle out, and then I'm going to call this a reading. This is really interesting. I think for some of you, definitely coming out of some kind of responsibility or connection with someone who has been able to manipulate you, or you feel like they've been trying to manipulate your life. And this year, you just find a way to come out of it. Absolutely come out of it. Again, fate happens this year. A lot of things are going to be very fated, feeling like destined, you know. And certainly, I think this love connection is going to feel very sort of destined when it comes in. And again, this anxiety that you have, you know, it's not necessarily going to have any, you know, truth to it or basis to it, because Two of Cups is a very balanced sort of love connection. It's another two. So, all right, your Sacred Rebel Oracle is every journey starts with a single step. So there you go. So this is exactly what I'm talking about in a sense that, you know, taking the steps, the first steps, Page of Swords, right? It's the first step to planning a way to get away from this oppressive environment or connection that you have with someone in your life. And it just takes the first step to planning and figuring it out and being very intentional. And this will indeed be a journey for you, but the journey will be very great because you're going to come out from underneath the manipulation of someone in your life right now. And this is going to be a year of freeing yourself. All right, guys, this is your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, and share if you did, my lovely Virgos. Don't forget to hit the bell so you can be notified of all my premieres, because I do premiere all my videos. But for right now, Virgo, have a wonderful rest of 2019, and I shall see you in 2020. Bye-bye now.